Hey everyone, so welcome to the video. I wanted to introduce my kayak, my electric trolling motor setup on the kayak and how I managed to do it without using ropes to steer. So stay tuned, let's get into it. So this is the kayak. It's just a kayaks to fish kayak that you buy online. There are shops around Australia where you can buy these. I'm not sure if they're available anywhere else in the world, but you know, it's just a general sort of kayak. And as you can see, there's a few little things that have been done here. You can see some wires running around. This here is a PWM. It actually allows you to control the amount of electricity flowing through from a 0 to 100%, and you have reverse and forward for your electric motor as well. It works quite well when you hook it up to an electric motor that doesn't have a gradual control. So here you can choose what speed you want to do from 0 to 100%, instead of using the old trolling kayak motor settings where you might have 3 forward speeds and 2 reverse speeds or something like that. So you are quite limited, there's no range. You feed your battery into this and then you plug your trolling motor into this as well, and that's as basic as it is. I have a bit of a wire set up here. It might look messy at the moment, but it's not really, because once you put your seat in, all of this is covered up, so there's really no use of going crazy. The other idea of this setup was for me to create a setup on the kayak that didn't wreck the kayak. So I was trying to do it without drilling holes and everything into the kayak itself. This is where the actual trolling motor sits into, and again, as you can see, I haven't created anything that has put holes into the kayak. So these are just some alloy pipes that I've done, and we just cut them to length and put them together. This is just a rough job, file it off the edges and that's it, but make it simple and make it work. This kayak used to have a rudder on the back, and this rope here used to control the lifting of the rudder. What I've done is I've utilized the lifting of this cable here, which comes out the back here, and you'll see when I set it up, that allows me to lift up the trolling motor, and that comes through to here. So I can pull and lift up that trolling motor just from a seating position. When I first set it up, the trolling motor that I did have, it was for kayaks, and it was meant to mount on the side of your kayak. This was the original mount where it was, but what I found was, because it mounted onto the side and you have just a bit of a tiller arm, it just wasn't good enough. You couldn't turn very sharp in one direction, the other direction would turn less. So I've reutilized this point, and I'll show you in a minute, but it's kind of like a push back and forward tiller setup that I've got going on here. This is just a standard storage compartment for your kayak. Now I have set this up. I've cut a bit out of here because I've got quite a big battery that goes in here. I'll show you that soon. This is a battery monitor, so it allows me to see how much battery power or percentage I've got left. Under here we've got a 1.5 amp power regulator, and that's just used for the fish finder that I've got set up. Now the way the regulator works is, this is 1.5 amps. Now it always makes sure that the fish finder has 1.5 amps of power flowing to it. If you were using a trolling motor that zapped a whole lot of power out of your battery all at once, it can actually cause your fish finders to shut off. Now I'm using a lithium battery, so the chances of that happening is probably 0, but I'll pop it in there just for a just in case sort of thing. Fuses and lines, so there's just a whole lot of stuff going on in here. It's not really that technical. We've basically got this plugs into the battery, comes out the other side, splits into the fish finder, and then the other bit goes along to the PWM, and the end of the fish finder is here, so the fish finder just sits up and plugs in here. It's actually not that sophisticated, and we've got some painkillers in there because we know how much of a headache we get out when we're fishing and we miss a good sized fish. So just jumping back over to the car, here is the battery. Now I've gone with the FPV power. It's a kayak battery, it's completely waterproof, 12 volt 50 amp hour. This thing actually lasts me incredibly long time. I could be out trolling with my 20-pound thrust electric motor, which is plenty enough to push this kayak along. On a normal day, it'll get the kayak moving about 6 to 7 kilometers, which is faster than generally you really want. This sits in here. So as you can see, the battery sits a little bit high, and that's the reason why I've chopped out the base of this. The other thing that I've done in here is I've put in this a sealant, a waterproof sealant, so you can see the cable sits nice and snug on here, and the other end I've cut a little hole in there as well. So what we'll do here is we need to just plug these two in, but here they are here. And these actual connectors here, I really can't remember what they're called, but they're used for like a lot of solar panel connectors on your roof, things like that, so they're completely waterproof. So we can see in here, it's saying that we've got 80.9% battery power left. Now that's not actually true. You have to reset this. You put in it how many amp hours you have. So I put in 50, and then you press and hold this button here every time you charge it. So now I've reset to 100%, and it will tell me how much I have. So I can be out on the water for a good 4 to 5 hours, and it will only use 25% of that battery, and that's running like just trolling constantly, so I'm not really stopping, so it is a constant troll, and also running the fish finder constantly as well. Another good thing is a backup propeller, and that just sits in there nice and snug. So you'll notice that my oar just sits on the side there, and that's generally where it stays. It's very rare that I pull it off and actually start using it. Got a nice seat, and that just sits in. And like I said before, it covers up all those wires, so you basically have the wires all sorted out. Alright, so the seat's in, as you can see, and I've just held it down. So that's just all standard kayak stuff, no problems. So next thing up is to open up my big bag of goodies. And my life jacket. This is a fishing life jacket. It's the Water Snake brand, but the reason why I really love it is because it's got lots of little pockets. For example, this pocket up here will fit my extra GoPro batteries in there, so I'm not having to dig through bags and stuff to try to get it out. Also, I can put my keys in there, my phone's in there, and if I flip out of the kayak, I'm not going to lose the stuff that's going to get me home. So what else do we have in the bag of goodies for the kayak setup? We have a fishing rod holder. This is a short handle fishing rod holder. It's the biggest one, the biggest net I could find with the shortest handle. Next up, we have the actual fish finder itself. This is a Lowrance Hook Reveal 7. It does the job, that's what it does. So this is a Yak Attack mount. It just clips onto your rail. It does seem a little bit wobbly, but it's completely fine. This rail is screwed in there. I even put a couple extra screws and some silicone, but the actual kit comes with the arm, the brace, this whole pallet here, and then right up, you put your Lowrance stuff on top of that plate on the bottom. Works really, really well. Perfect seating position. So that's all plugged in, and as you can see, the cable's nice and neat, and it just wraps up and around, so it's all out of your feet way. So another thing about this kayak is originally it had some rails here with an adjustable slide, and it was with some foot pedals. Those pedals attached to the rope here, which allowed the rudder at the back of the kayak to turn left and right. But what I actually found is when I tried to use that same setup for the trolling motor, it just didn't work. It didn't have the movability. So I've just tied off these two ropes here, and they just sit there. Like I said, the idea about setting this up was to make it so I could put everything back to how it was with minimal effort. So next, coming out of this bag is the trolling motor itself. Originally, the pole would sit on the kayak like this, and your trolling motor here. And as you can imagine, it's not that great when you're turning the motor. It just doesn't work that well. So what I've done is I've taken the head off. There's no head required, and I've built this little bit on the back. So the trolling motor just slides in here like this, and you see that I've drilled a hole right there and a hole there, and that's actually to stop it from tilting. I noticed that it had a little bit too much torque sometimes when you really ripped it, and all I do is I line that up and then we clamp it down. So it didn't really matter how much I torqued down these hand screws, I still found that I would always sort of try to twist. One thing about these is what I soon realised is why I lost one of these is make sure you tighten them down before you put your kayak back on your car, because you'll soon realise that you've lost it in your journey home. Anderson plug just plugs into there, nice and tight. So I've got that on there. So the first thing is, what you might have noticed is I've got a couple pulleys here. So I've literally just attached one here and one up the top here, and the idea behind that is it allows me to lift the motor up. Just going to do this, and that ties up there. So what I do is I just lift this up a little bit, tie a knot, and then we call it a day. There we are. Next we have this pole, and this is the beauty. This is what fixes your steering problems and not have to worry about using your feet or ropes and getting extra tangled up. And this just sits across the top here. So what I do is I tighten this one up as tight as I can get it with my thumb, and then we get the lock nut on there. And this allows it to lock so it doesn't come loose. So as you can see, when you're sitting down, you can just hold this and you just push backwards and forth, and it will turn it for you. So the other great thing is, as you can see here, is the pulley of the cable, and that will allow it, you can lift up the motor just by pulling this cable. And it's got a little lock there. Mind you, all this stuff, this was all just standard stuff on the kayak. Now you can see, it's when it's at its full height, it's actually well above the bottom of the kayak, which is really, really great. Nice and simple setup. You're not having ropes and things like that, not having to worry about your feet. I like to kick back and put my feet in the middle of the kayak. We're good to go. I'm going to get the last fishing rod holder in, and I'll see you on the water. Alright, well, thanks for watching. So all in all, as you can see, the kayak setup is pretty good. It's simple, but it actually works and allows you to not have to worry about using your feet or your ankles to steer the kayak. You can just use the tiller steer. You can actually move the tiller steer into a position, and it's because of the length of the pole, it just sits in that position. It doesn't move at all, so that you can keep yourself moving. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to get out there on the water and see if I can catch something.